right, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending, 0 tears. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
The new Red Bull Dragonberry Energizer is now at McDonald's. Made with freeze-dried dragon fruit and made to lock in. The all-new Energizer, now at McDonald's.
Welcome in to another episode of the James Boyd Podcast. I, of course, am James Boyd, joined by my editor, Jim Aiello. Jim, we're back, baby. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm, you know what? I feel vindicated. I will say. I will say on multiple levels, and you should too, because I think on this podcast, which I've enjoyed, we started to give people kind of a look behind the scenes and how the sausage is made with this stuff. And so, I will tell you guys that James sent me a text maybe a week ago and was like, I'm gonna write a Keenan Allen to the Colts story real quick, just like 500 words. Can you just get it ready? And I was like, yeah, man, if you think that's going to happen. He's like, I don't know if it's going to happen, but they need help. And so vindication for James, vindication for me in that I think we've been talking all offseason about, like, I didn't know if Keenan Allen was the right fit necessarily. And I'm just jumping right into this. I know. Sorry. We're talking Keenan Allen on the Colts. But I have been saying all offseason that, like, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine and Ashton Dulin are really in over their heads, I would say, as 3-4s on a receiver depth chart, and feel really good as a 4-5 on a receiver depth chart. Like, that feels much more appropriate. Because, again, like, you have to see that. To me, and again, you can see how you see your reaction to the Keenan Allen thing. But to me, you don't want to have to play Nick Westbrook-Ikhine or Ashton Dulin in your 11 personnel or 4 receiver sets if you're going even wider than that. So you just want, if there's an injury, yes, Dulin can fill in for a little while. Or yes, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine is a good red zone target. You can plug him in for a little bit. But you want to use them as specialized versions of themselves. What do they do best and use them that way? When you start talking about using them in 11 personnel, that gets harder. You're asking them to do more than they are capable of. So I like the Keenan Allen addition on that side of things. But let me spin it to you. And yeah, you could talk about how this all went down in terms of the signing. But then, yeah, obviously I'm curious as to, like, how do you feel like, you know, you've had kind of a day or so to think about it. Like, how do you feel he fits? What do you feel like his role is going to be in Shane Steichen's offense?
Yeah, so to recap, the Colts have made an agreement with Keenan Allen, 1-year deal worth up to $8.32 million for this upcoming season. That happened on Monday, and as Jim talked about, I filed my pre-write, as we call it here in our world, on Keenan Allen joining the Colts last week. I kind of had, like, the outline of it and kind of some things written for about a month now. And I was like, let me just put this over the finish line, because I think what kind of pushed me was going into the New England joint practice and thinking, boy, I'm not seeing a whole lot outside of Josh Downs and Tyler Warren. Like, they need help. And I think it was evident even more so after that camp. So we got everything ready to go. And of course, the one day I'm a responsible adult, I go to bed before midnight. I went to bed at maybe like 10:15 the other night. I was like, I'm going to get some rest. You know, those listening, I'm sure, probably are aware. I do a radio show in the morning, 7 to 10 a.m. I'm up by, at the latest, 6:30 every day. The station is right here, so I don't have a long commute. But the point is, I finally went to bed early, and I wake up the next day, and I see that my Keenan Allen story got posted without me. So, so
you get credit. Your name's on it.
Exactly. Yeah. So shout out to Jonathan Jones, one of our new NFL senior writers coming over from CBS. He helped confirm some stuff as well. I was able to confirm it on my end after, waking up and being hours late to the news. But nevertheless, it helps to be prepared. Jim handled everything, and I was getting some nice Z's when Keenan Allen was coming over to the Colts. So now that we've kind of revealed how the sausage is made, Jim, and I kind of had to laugh at it because I'm like, man, I can't remember the last time that's ever happened to me. I remember being up late, super late one night when the Luka Doncic trade broke, and I was at like 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. So again, for those young journalists who might be listening to this, always pre-write. Always make sure your editor has the pre-write. All we had to do is drop in a couple of details, get it out there. And then, of course, we follow up and clean it up a little bit more with more information. But we had it ready to go. And I think that was a good thing to do, mainly because it just made the most sense for what the Colts needed, the familiarity between Keenan Allen and Shane Steichen, the production that Keenan Allen has had in recent years. If you look at the numbers that he had last year, they're very comparable to what Michael Pittman Jr. put up. So all of that in mind, it just made too much sense in my mind to not be prepared for basically when this would happen. Like, I didn't know officially when it would happen, but just giving you all the real, I have talked to people behind the scenes about this possibility for months. And it always seemed like, as long as Keenan didn't sign anywhere else, then inevitably he would end up in Indianapolis. So I saw on Twitter he was asking for, masseuse and personal chef recommendations. I cannot recommend either for him. I don't have that
you don't
lifestyle.
Have those?
No. Typically, I played basketball last night. Body's a little sore this morning. The only thing I'm going to get if I sprain an ankle is like an Epsom salt in a bucket or something. I don't know if there's a masseuse around to fix me up. But nevertheless, I think it's a huge pickup for the Colts and one that was needed, Jim. And the question I want to ask you is, do you think Keenan has enough left in the tank? And I get that he's been very productive in recent years, but he's also 34. And as someone who's watched a lot of sports throughout my life and even covered it now professionally for about half a decade, the end can come really fast. And a player can be one thing one year and nothing the next. So do you think it was worth it to roll the dice on a guy like Keenan Allen? I do think it is worth it, but worth it enough to make an impact with this team?
It depends what your perspective is. Let me just say that.
Okay.
Like, if your name is Josh Downs, it's not worth it. Is what I would say. Listen, I've seen a lot of back and forth on this, on Twitter, and I understand it, honestly. Like, it's a lot of fantasy stuff, it's a lot of Colts stuff mixed together with what does this mean for Josh Downs and Tyler Warren and other pass catchers? Obviously, I think we can all agree that probably not going to affect Alec Pierce if and when he's healthy. It's not really what Keenan Allen does, and they play very different. They play it's almost like they play completely different positions, so we don't really have to worry about that. The one thing I will say is that I think the people, and by the people I'm pointing two fingers at myself right now, who are expecting a big Josh Downs season are going to have to temper expectations a little bit, because to answer the first part of your question, yeah, man, I think Keenan Allen has something left in the tank. Right now, I got two screens pulled up here, and I got one I'm talking to you, and the other one I'm watching. I got Keenan Allen highlights from last year, watching, and again, he's not the same. He doesn't move the same. There was a time in his career where I thought he was right there with Vontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins is the best, smoothest route runners in the NFL. Some of the guys who get off the line of scrimmage the cleanest, can just separate immediately. Now he's more of a crafty, zone beating type of receiver with incredibly good hands still. He's always had that. That hasn't gone away.
Yeah.
So now the other perspective is this going to help? Yeah, it's super useful to this Colts offense. To have a guy like this. I mean, I again, that's another thing that I saw on Colts Twitter the last couple of days is all the comparisons to Michael Pittman Jr. He's essentially put up identical stats to Michael Pittman Jr. the last couple of years, and they're going to pay him significantly less than they had to pay Michael Pittman Jr. And I think there's things that at this point in his career, Pittman does better. Pittman's better with the ball in his hands and after the catch than Keenan Allen is going to be at this point in his career. I think Michael Pittman's a better blocker at the end of this point. Keenan Allen is going to be. So it's not they're getting identical production and it's nothing. Let's not knock Michael Pittman. I know he's not here in Indianapolis anymore, but guy was a good player. Guy's going to be a really good player for the Steelers. He's going to fit in really, really well there. He's going to do a lot for them. As locker room leader for them and all that stuff. Now, not that Keenan Allen can't be, but he'll be new in that locker room. Not to Shane Steichen, but new in general. So,
right.
But in general, for this offense, we've talked often throughout this offseason about I just don't love the depth of this team. There are so many spots where I'm God, if somebody gets hurt, that's going to be a problem. Oh, at corner is one of the only spots where we feel they got a little bit of depth we feel okay about. But most spots, I'm just God, if they lose the starter there, this is going to be trouble. Receiver was one of them. We saw it. You've been talking about it. Alec Pierce went down. You got Josh Downs and question mark. Right? It's been that way. Now it's Josh Downs and Keenan Allen. So it's going to be a specialized role. I do think it will be similar to the Michael Pittman role that we saw last year in this offense, and that it works so well. let's remember this offense was on a historic pace last year through the first 8 to 10 games, I'd say. And I think that they needed to find somebody who could kind of fill that spot. Credit to Steichen and Ballard. I think they gave the guys on their roster opportunity to prove themselves that they could step into that role to some degree. Didn't happen, right? That's I mean, you can speak to that better than I can.
Yeah. I'm actually looking at it right here because we mentioned the stats between Michael Pittman Jr. and then Keenan Allen. So here are the numbers for those listening so you have it accurately. Last year, MPJ, Michael Pittman Jr., had 111 targets, 80 receptions, 784 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He averaged 9.8 yards per reception. Keenan Allen last year, 122 targets, 81 receptions, 777 yards, 4 touchdowns, average 9.6 yards per reception. Now, to me, those numbers are basically the same. And like you said, it is for a much cheaper player. Now, you can go back and say, oh, well, if you're going to miss on Trey Hendrickson and have all this cap space, should you just kept Michael Pittman Jr.? Maybe. But, like, no one could have seen the future that far, and all the craziness has kind of unfolded since then. But for me, Jim, I just think that after you re-sign Daniel Jones, you re-sign Alec Pierce, you have to tell your quarterback or show your quarterback, we're going to help you out. And I don't know if it was spurred by Alec Pierce maybe not being available right now. He's still got a month before the season starts. Yeah. He's still not doing anything in practice, hasn't participated in a practice. He will miss actually all of training camp. He will not be a part of the joint practices with the Falcons today and tomorrow, according to Shane Steichen. But I don't think that this is something that was spurred by his absence. I think it was just plainly, even if he's healthy, you need another dude in there. And this guy is that. But at the same time, I do wonder, because of some of the overlap between skill sets with Keenan Allen, Josh Downs, even Tyler Warren to a degree, like some of these short intermediate stuff, like how much redundancy is there? Is there too much overlap? And this is where you have to trust Shane Steichen to be, as Sauce Gardner called him, a top 3 play caller in the world. Like, you trust the ingenuity, you trust the chemistry, you trust the production that Keenan Allen's put on tape year after year. And that to me was probably a fairly good factor in like figuring out, okay, well, we know they've worked together for 7 years in the past. And for 2 years, Shane was actually Keenan's offensive coordinator. Now, granted, that was back in 2019, 2020. So like the world was different. This was pre-COVID. But my point is, I do think that there is still some juice left there, a little bit left on the tires for Shane to exploit. And I'm not saying that, you know, Keenan has to be the focal point of your passing offense like he's often been, even at this stage of his career. Yeah. But he's a proven commodity and much more proven than anybody else you would call your wide receiver 3 on your roster. And Jim, you can attest to this, and you can definitely share some perspective. When I called you after the Patriots joint practice, my report was essentially, beyond just like the defensive stuff, the offense, if it wasn't Josh Downs, if it wasn't Tyler Warren, it wasn't working. And so I wonder if that was a bigger factor. Not the timeline of Alec Pierce, but them looking at them go against another team and saying, oh boy, our number 1 quarterback is out there. He's healthy, he's moving, but if we don't have an answer besides number 2 and Tyler Warren, number 84, we're screwed.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have been, it's not just you too. You've been saying it. I've been seeing it from other Colts reporters that, you know, some of the guys that we like and your friends in on the beat. Like it's not just a solo observation in terms of these guys don't have what they need. One thing that stood out to me, and again, like I wanted to point this out because this is kind of the guy he's been throughout his entire career. And I wonder if it is something that the Colts were thinking that they were lacking. Like I pulled up last year's stats. Again, Keenan Allen, I think he was like 36th, and Pittman was 37th in receiving yards. So they're like identical in that. But I filtered on True Media. God love True Media. For third downs only.
Oh, okay. I looked at this too. Go ahead.
Keenan Allen. Okay, first of all, Keenan Allen finished 3rd in the NFL in third down targets behind Amon-Ra St. Brown, Cortland Sutton. And he finished tied for 2nd with Cortland Sutton. They both had 51. Amon-Ra St. Brown was at 54. Next was Jamar Chase at 46. So third down, Justin Herbert was like, where's Keenan Allen? That, like, I must find Keenan Allen to get these yards. He is so reliable on these impactful downs that, again, like, And that's a team that actually had some decent pass catchers last year. Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston, took a step forward last year, and they were looking for Keenan Allen on third downs. And if you look at the difference between him and Pittman, like Pittman was only targeted on 25 third downs. He only had 157 receiving yards on third down, whereas I think Keenan Allen was 10th at 355. So
yeah.
Just a huge impact, like need to get open, got to have it down. Keenan Allen still has it, right? Like he still has it.
Here's one more stat to throw in there, and I'll let you continue.
Do it.
So of those 34 receptions, to your point, 29 went for first downs.
Yeah.
Like, that's money. He's average. I'm looking at the average per reception on third down, 10.44. So basically, you get a new set of downs if you throw it to him on third down.
Yep. And he led the league. That, by the way, those 34 receptions are a league leading in terms of third down receptions. So Justin Herbert knew where his bread was buttered on third down. Again, that offense struggled last year. They threw probably more than they wanted to. Obviously, their offensive line got banged up, so they couldn't run the ball quite as well as they'd hoped. So they were throwing more often. So again, these stats are, I'm not saying they're the be-all, end-all. Like, he has more receptions on third down than Jamar Chase. He's better than Jamar Chase. I don't think anybody's saying that. I just think that he is, you started this kind of with, does he still have juice? Can he still do what you need him to do? I mean, it's another year older, but I mean, the guy proved it last year. Like he's proved it every year. There was a stat in your story that he's put up. I forget the exact numbers. I'm sure you have it in front of you, but it's like 60 and 700. It's like 60 and 700 for like 7 straight years. Like he's done it with the Chargers multiple times. He did it with the Bears when he was there. He's going to do. I think he's going to do it with the Colts. Like I just think this guy has the type of game that has aged gracefully. Yeah, again, for every receiver, it falls off a cliff at some point. But I just think, I know you got the stats now, but I just think he's going to be really, really serviceable for this team. And you know what? The other thing is, he's probably not going to play all 17 games, which like he's had some injury history stuff. He played 17 last year, but he might not play all 17 games. But the good thing is now he's not. You don't need him to be the number one option. You still have Pierce, you still have Warren, you still have Downs, and this guy is going to add an element you didn't have.
Meet the Red Bull Dragonberry Energizer. It's one of the many new drinks out now. Who knew ice cold drinks could be so fire? Try them all, only at McDonald's.
Exactly. So I'm looking at it right here. Yeah, he had 9 straight years of at least 65 catches, 700 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. So he is a model of consistency. I'm not sure if he's a Hall of Famer, Jim. We were debating that on the radio on 107.5 The Fan. Like, if he continues to put a couple more seasons on, could he get there? I think he's one of 18 players all time with 1,000 receptions. He's only like, I want to say he might be less than 20 catches away from catching like Reggie Wayne on the all-time list. But my point is, beyond like the Hall of Fame talk and all that, he is one of the greatest receivers of this generation. He is one of the greatest prolific receivers of this generation. And you could probably use that guy for your team. And worst come to worst, if it doesn't work out, you had ample cap space. It's a 1-year deal. You're not on the hook for forever. And at least you can say you did something. Now, if there's a critique, we might be able to go back and say, well, you should have addressed wide receiver sooner when there were other people available on the market. Stephon Diggs comes to mind. He's another recent signing. I know there was reports about them being interested in Deebo Samuel. Perhaps you should have got it across the finish line with one of those 2 guys instead of Keenan Allen. But it just felt like with the relationship with Shane, the familiarity in the offense, and the ability to just produce year in and year out. I mean, to his credit, he's produced more than even those guys that I mentioned, Diggs and Samuel, over the last couple of years. So the one thing I will say, though, is I'm looking at the third down thing again. Yeah. So Downs wasn't too far down, No,
Downs had good numbers on third down, for sure.
Yeah, so he had down last year, and I'm looking at it right here. 20 of those went for first downs. So I guess it fits his name, Josh Downs, first downs. So, again, does that volume get scaled back at all? Like, does it get increased because Pittman isn't here? Because A.D. Mitchell, at least for half the season, isn't here anymore? Like, those types of things come to mind. And again, this is where you trust Shane, you trust Daniel to kind of figure it out and make it all work. But the bottom line is, I just don't think you can go into a basically do or die season, win or go home type of thing for this regime, because I do think, we can get into that on a different podcast on a different day. Like, the hot seat is as warm as it's ever been, as hot as that ever been for Chris Ballard, because he's in the final year of his contract. And Shane, you haven't made the playoffs in your first 3 years. If you don't make it in the fourth year, like, how many people keep their job? So my point is, are you willing to bet on Ashton Dulin, Nick Westbrook-Akine, or Laquan Treadwell as your wide receiver 3? Are you willing to bet your job on that? I'm not. I would feel much more comfortable betting my job on Keenan Allen. Third and Keenan is his nickname, for crying out loud. So, yeah, Jim, it's one of those things where, again, low risk, high reward. He doesn't cost a whole lot. He's not going to break the bank to come here to Indianapolis. From what I understand, from like a personality standpoint, he's also not like a Stephon Diggs type where like there might be some off the field controversy and, there might be some, selfish tendencies. It doesn't seem like he's ever been that player. Granted, he's always had a bunch of targets his way, so why complain about that? I mean, I looked it up, Jim. The last 3 years, washed up, quote unquote. I said in air quotes as a joke.
Yeah.
Keenan Allen has had at least 120 targets in each of his last 3 years, and
he's
like
quarterback's best friend, man. He really is.
Exactly. So very curious to see what he looks like in this offense. I don't expect him to be out there for practice with the Atlanta Falcons by any means, because he probably hasn't been doing a whole lot of team stuff because he's been a free agent. So I'll probably ease him back in. I'm hoping to, talk to him as soon as they make this thing official. It hasn't been officially announced yet, but it is going to happen. He probably just needs to get to Indianapolis, take his physical, sign his contract, do all the little bells and whistles. And then once they officially sign him, then we'll hear from him why he chose to come here, why he maybe waited so late to sign. Because last year around this time, Jim, Kevin Boehm, my radio co-host at 107.5 The Fan, pointed this out. He actually signed about 2 weeks before when he returned to the Chargers than he did with the Colts. Is there any reason for that? Or are you just like, you know what, I'm old, I don't want to do training camp. I've caught 1,000 passes. Like, what do I have to prove to anybody?
That move, baby.
That sort of thing.
I like it. Yeah.
So to pivot a little bit, I know, and you feel free to, we can kind of go back and forth on this when it comes to my 53-man roster projection.
Yeah.
So to recap, that comes out Monday night. So Tuesday morning, I had a 53-man roster projection. My first one really of the offseason come out. And of course, I had to update it to include Keenan Allen. So I actually took Keenan Allen and put him on the team. I don't think that he's on the chopping block by any means.
I think that's a pretty good take.
Yeah, I think that's pretty safe. And so I took off Laquan Treadwell. And my thinking there was that, one, it isn't just because Laquan Treadwell was number 13, which is Keenan Allen's number. I think on a more serious note, if, like you mentioned earlier, Jim, if Ashton Dulin suddenly becomes your 4 or 5, you can then put him back into that like supercharged special teams role that he's so good at. He's one of the best gunners in the NFL. He's a former first team or second team All-Pro at that position. And Brian Mason, the Colts special teams coordinator, shout out to him, toughest dude ever, still out there coaching after messing up his knee and getting rolled up on the sideline in the preseason finale. I'm on a tangent, but my God, the man's out there with like bionic leg, and he's apparently going to just try to rehab it. So anyway, Brian Mason calls Ashton Dulin one of the 3 best special teams players in the league, excluding kickers and stuff like that. So if that's what he is, why not put him back into that role and then have Nick Westbrook-Akine kind of be like your emergency receiver as well. And I just think that even Nick Westbrook-Akine offers you some more special teams, prowess in his career. I do think that, Ashton Dulin obviously excels in that area. And Laquan Treadwell, he does some of that stuff, Jim, but I just feel like he didn't do enough of it for me to really keep him on there from like a punt return standpoint. Coleman Owen is on my list as well. So, yeah, I know there's some debate on like who I would take off, but I feel pretty comfortable about my wide receiver choices. But, yeah, it got a little dicey other areas, though. I won't lie. We can get all the way into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start up top because I think, I don't know if we need to dive into the quarterback on this podcast. Like, it sounded like from what you've been kind of hearing, what Ed Dodds seemed to indicate when he was speaking with he's the assistant GM, speaking with you guys recently, that, he said we take care of our own team first before you kind of look into trade. So that sounded like a strong indication that Anthony Richardson will probably stay in Indianapolis.
It did to me, and what he said to follow up to that was, we want to have 3 quarterbacks that we have trust in. And if he's one of them, he's going to be here. Those were his words. And then someone else followed up and was like, well, why do you feel so adamant about keeping 3? Some teams keep 2. And he said something along the lines of, Jim, look at last season. And last year they had 4 different starting quarterbacks. They had to call a guy to retirement because they got banged up. So if you look at, even if you just say, okay, well, Daniel Jones has injury history. Riley Leonard isn't the most durable quarterback. Anthony really isn't. So it's almost like, it's kind of weird. Like they have some of the most, I guess, unique, like experienced quarterbacks in their room, because everyone in that room, even including Easton Stick, has started a game in the NFL. I don't know how many NFL quarterback rooms can say that. But on the flip side, your top 3 all have injury problems. So, I mean, you can probably just roll the dice on any of them and expect one guy to get in there because the other guy gets banged up. So that makes
yeah, we'll move on to the running backs here. Sorry, I think I lost audio for a second there. My
You're
bad.
fine.
Yeah, I lost the. No, yeah, I did want to talk about the running backs because you cut DJ Giddens, which I think is probably surprising to some people. I mean, not. I guess to say if you're paying attention to training camp, it's not that surprising. If you're just kind of like, wait, DJ Giddens was a draft pick last year, and people were kind of excited about him last year and thought he had a chance to even enter this year's training camp as like the main backup to Jonathan Taylor, and you effectively maybe put him on the practice squad at this point. So what was your thinking behind that? I mean, is it simply just we haven't seen him enough this offseason?
I think it's that, but I also think, Jim, it's when you're out and your counterparts excel, how much should we save this spot for you? Like, for example, and I don't wish this on any player at all, but like, let's say Tyler Warren got a hamstring injury and he missed all of training camp. No one will be like, well, he's not making the team. He's Tyler Warren. He is one of the focal points of your offense. For DJ Giddens, I think that he really had to kind of prove himself. So he kind of came into camp and we viewed him as like, okay, this guy can be your running back number 2, possibly, build on his rookie season from last year, a very quiet rookie season. That did not happen. He was kind of competing with Seth McGowan. I thought Seth McGowan looked really good. Then DJ Giddens pulls the hamstring. He's been out for a few weeks now. Seth McGowan has taken off. And quietly, Ulysses Bentley IV, say that 5 times fast, has suddenly emerged as like this really good pass-catching running back. And he's had some really good camps and showing throughout the preseason. So to me, I just think that at this point, if you're going to have a 3-room running back room, I'm going to roll with the guys that's healthy and the guys that are producing and showing me something. And to give some credit to Joey Erickson of Indy Star, he recently did a story on the running back room, and in it, he talks to DeAndre Smith about the room, who is the running backs coach for the Colts, and he says that Bentley has the best hands. And we've seen that show up time and time again. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, if JT's your superhero, what are the other 2 traits that you want from these guys? Like, what's their super trait? If he's a superhero, what's their super trait? I think the physicality for Seth McGowan is evident. Like, they really love that. Also, the pass protection, stuff like that. Like, he just brings a hard-nosed approach to the game. He's also valuable on special teams. You look at the same thing with Bentley, best hands in the group. What does DJ Giddens really do well? Even prior to the hamstring injury, he had dropped a couple passes out of the backfield in camp. Didn't look great. So that's where I had to just, I think, make a kind of a bold choice and say, I'll take this undrafted dude, Bentley, who's been in the league a couple years now, over a draft pick just from last year in DJ Giddens.
I think it makes sense. I mean, like I said, given what we haven't seen from DJ Giddens, I think it's kind of a call that you had to make. And that one seems like it could be reopened, re-examined in a couple of 10 days or whatever. And again, I would be surprised if they, I guess I wouldn't be surprised if they kept Giddens around as a practice squad member. So I don't know that he wouldn't be a part of the Colts moving forward, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I do want to move on. I was curious. You kept 4 tight ends. I remember, you talked to Rick Venturi for a story a couple weeks ago now about what he was seeing, and I think he said that he wanted to keep 4 tight ends at some point. Actually, I think he said that during the broadcast of the preseason game, but I know he's been impressed with Will Mallory. I'm curious if you thought the Keenan Allen addition had any effect on what they might do in the tight end room, just because you're going to keep, you have a little bit more reliability in terms of pass catching, which is what Will Mallory does, right? With Keenan Allen in the fold. So I was curious if they might only keep 3 tight ends, try to sneak on somebody else at another spot. I don't know. I'm just curious what your thoughts were there.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't think it out a whole lot, but I do like this question. Selfishly, I still want to keep Will Mallory. I think that he's been that good throughout the preseason. I also know that saying that, I'm looking back at last year, he only appeared in 2 games, and his production and really like his opportunities have dwindled since he's coming to the NFL, even though I think that he's become a better player. So, man, Jim, part of me still wants to keep him because I think that he's good enough that you can find opportunities for him, especially if you get into some of those like wonky, 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets, 13 personnel, 3 tight end sets, like where you kind of use him as the, glorified wide receiver, because that's basically what he is. He's just a big body wide receiver that plays tight end. Like, no one's going to look at Will Mallory and say, all right, I need you to chip this, edge rusher and then go out here and, block this guy. No, when he's on the field, he's in there to catch passes, move the chains. And to his credit, he's done that. Like I just talked about, what's your superpower? His is getting open and making plays down the field. So selfishly, I still want to keep him. But to your point, I don't think that his spot in my mind is as secure as it was pre Keenan Allen coming over to the 317. You're muted, my friend.
And sorry, when I envision the Will Mallory role, there's construction going outside. Man, I've had a day already.
That's fine.
It's in 13 personnel when you're going 3 tight ends, because I think if you're going 12, you're going Warren, you're probably going Mo Alley Cox.
That's fair,
and, yeah. And you want, because you kind of want that extra blocker who's a bit of a threat to catch the ball, and Mo still is. If you're gonna maybe put Drew Ogletree in there for that, so that's where I kind of think Will Mallory might lose out on some of that stuff. But like he is a good pass catcher and can kind of field stretch. And if you are going to play like a heavy set with 13 personnel, I could see Mallory sliding in there. Good depth for that. But again, I just worry for him, I should say, about the roster spot now that Keenan Allen's here, because I feel like they might embrace big personnel a little less than they had to before. They might try to go a little more 11 because they have 3 legit receivers. Again, assuming Alec Pierce is ready to play, which is not a given at any point so far. I know they're not worried yet. They still say he'll be ready for the opener, but I'll move on quickly to the offensive line, only because you made a point of saying that Blake Freeland kind of made you go back and forth a little bit, and I just kind of wanted to see what, why that was exactly, and you kind of explore the offensive line, where his spot is on this roster.
Yeah, I just don't think I've seen the growth from him that I probably would have wanted to. I know that last year was really rough for him in the preseason. Granted, it's only been 1 game so far, and throughout training camp, he's been kind of okay. He's one of the, I guess, rare offensive line, I guess, quote unquote, misses for the Colts. He was a 4th-round pick in 2023, and usually those guys pan out in Indianapolis. But the reason why I had him making the cut is just because Ballard loves his trenches, and the Colts, under his tenure, typically really roster up offensive linemen and defensive linemen. Like, you might think that somebody's not really worth that spot or they could be on the practice squad. No, they always preach, Ballard himself always preaches having depth when it comes to the trenches. And so that's why I had him making the cut. I don't necessarily love it. We could see some more changes. I know they had some guys that they signed yesterday to some contracts, because Luke Tenuta, who I think is their best backup kind of tackle, he's got a knee injury going on. I don't know what that means for his status going forward. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel about both sides of the line. Like, I didn't love or like look at some of these guys as like slam dunk choices, but in my mind, I'm like, why am I trying to fool myself by keeping 8 offensive linemen or 8 defensive linemen when I know Ballard is almost always going to keep 10 of each?
Yeah, we'll stick on the trenches on the other side and go to the defense. You cut Jerry Tillery. I don't know if that's controversial or not. It's a name people know, I would say. You had Caden Curry, local boy, making the team. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. I know in the story, I think I get generally where you're going with this, is they need some pass rush juice, and if Curry can give that to them, that might give him a bit of an edge. Yeah,
so when it comes to Tillery, I was like, I don't know if I should like keep him in there. Like, is it, am I being too optimistic about DeForest Buckner? But I think Kobe Wooden is why I kept Tillery off, because Wooden has that experience of playing like the 3-tech or the nose. Like, he can kind of slide in at both if DeForest gets a little banged up, if Grover gets a little banged up, unfortunately. I think that he's a good backup there. Adetomo Adebawore, I think, flashed a lot throughout training camp in the preseason, continues to make strides as a very good rotational defensive tackle. And then as far as defensive ends go, and why I kept Caden Curry, it wasn't just the preseason game, which he looked pretty good in. I mean, granted, he went against guys in the 3rd and 4th quarter who probably will not be on 53-man rosters. But to me, That's what you're supposed to look like. You dominate. You show everybody that I'm a cut above these guys. Like, I'm an actual NFL player. These guys might be like fringe or dudes that might unfortunately end up, not, I can't say unfortunately, they might end up going elsewhere to play professional football, whether it's the CFL or something like that. Like, to be clear, if you play football for a living, you're probably very blessed to do so. But that's kind of my calculus there, Jim, with evaluating the defensive line. And quite frankly, it's because I haven't seen enough from Jalen Tuimoloau.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, if he wasn't a second round pick, he probably wouldn't be on this roster.
Yeah.
And if they weren't still trying to like push this Jalen Tuimoloau conversation on us, maybe I have the guts to just cut the second round pick, but I'm not there yet. But boy, he has not flashed hardly at all throughout training camp or the preseason.
That's tough, man. That's a big miss for Chris Ballard if that's what it ends up being. Again,
I mean, I don't know what to say.
He was kind of a late bloomer in college too, so it's possible it takes a little longer in the NFL. But we got a couple minutes left, so I'll flip through. I do want to highlight a colleague of ours' work. Our guy Daniel Popper he's kind of moved on from the Chargers beat, which is sad because he's one of the best beat writers in the country. But he is going to be doing more like contract and salary cap and stuff for us, which is awesome. It'll be he's kind of doing our pro personnel stuff, and so. He did a story the other day on the preseason stock watch and talking about bubble players. And he highlighted a Colts linebacker, which I thought was interesting, in Taj Chambers. You had him, it looks like, just missing the cut at linebacker. And again, he said, like, there might not be a spot for Taj Chambers on the Colts. But I was curious what your read was on him and how, because I think he had a pretty good preseason game. And I was curious what you've seen from him so far, and if you think he's got a shot to maybe jump into that in rotation for the Colts.
I think he's got a shot. It just depends on, again, how greedy you want to be with the defensive line and the offensive line. I kept 9 offensive linemen, 10 defensive linemen. If you cut defensive line down to 9, then do you add another linebacker? I think it helps his case that they continue to rotate a bunch of linebackers. But I'm looking at the guys ahead of him, and you have Austin Ajike, you have Akeem Davis-Gaither, Jalen Carlisle, who's had quietly a very good camp, and then
He
Bryce
was good
Bettcher
in preseason too.
Yeah, and CJ Allen. So like, I think a healthy CJ Allen probably hurts the Taj Chambers case.
Okay.
And to me, this is where, again, you do a good job of kind of vetting your undrafted rookies and stuff like that, but you can't keep everybody.
Sure.
But yeah, he was kind of right on the outside looking in for me, and I think the reason why I ultimately put him out was just because I knew we had TJ Allen getting healthier, and ideally you probably want more stability at that linebacker spot anyway.
I would say the only thing about trying to figure out a way to keep him is, like you said, there is a lot of question marks at linebacker. So if you have anybody with a sniff of talent, you want to try to keep him around. But
yeah, that's true.
It's a type of guy that you could probably sneak onto the practice squad as well. I don't know that he's going to get claimed, if during that process here in a week and a half here, but it's worth paying attention to. All right, last thing I'll get to you, and we'll finish up. And again, I strongly encourage you guys to read the story because James did a really great job breaking it all down. But kickers, just tell me about the kickers. Like, I think there's been a little bit of back and forth, given that Schrader had a nice preseason opener. So where is it? Where does it stand? And I know, Brian Mason might not be able to talk to you guys soon. Hopefully, that guy, like you said, is tough as nails being back out there at practice. Man. But but where's things at with the kicker?
So I know that Schrader had a good preseason opener, but the bottom line is in Westfield out here at Grand Park, I think Groupie is at like 90% accuracy on field goals, and they've all kicked from the same distance, same amount, more or less. And Schrader was at like 67%. And the bottom line is I just don't think that one preseason game can make up that big of a gap when they've been kicking in team settings in front of the team, pressurized, quote unquote, opportunities. Like, I get that games matter more, but I think the volume when it comes to kicking ultimately will help Blake Groupie win this job. And I think the good thing about Schrader is if he can have another good showing coming Saturday against the Falcons in the preseason game, and even this week during joint practices, perhaps he can just land him a job somewhere else. So that's kind of where I'm at on that front.
Yeah, that makes sense. Again, for his career, you hope that he has a nice preseason, because then, like you said, he might get scooped up by another team and get an opportunity somewhere else.
Exactly. So that's all we got for this episode. Again, Keenan Allen is an Indianapolis Colts, and I will continue over the last couple of days with Colts camp out at Grand Park, the last days for the foreseeable future for the Colts as they go back to their team facility next year. So I got one more 40 time to run. T.Y. Hilton,
Ooh,
I promise you I would do it.
Better be better. Better be better.
I'll have an update for you next
Get
week.
those cement out of your shoes.
Exactly. But thank you all for listening, and we'll check in with you all very, very soon.